The opinions, beliefs, and perspectives of Aisha Selena or any guest on Silence the Podcast do not reflect the opinions, beliefs, and perspectives of Yale University, Yale College, or other entities related to Yale, Yale staff, or Yale administration. The purpose of Silence the Podcast is to inspire people that look like me to apply to Yale, not to defame, bash, slander, or attack anyone mentioned on the episode, including but not limited to Yale University, Yale College, other entities related to Yale, Yale staff, or Yale administration. Silence is complacency.
Welcome to Silence the Podcast with Daisha Selena.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Silence the Podcast. I am so excited to talk about everything I'm going to discuss on this episode. I feel like I kind of left you guys on a cliffhanger from episode 2. If you didn't watch that episode, go watch it and then come back to this one. It might give you some context about what I'm going to talk about today. It's fine, whatever order you watch episodes in, just make sure you watch them. Not going to make this too long, but as always, I'm so grateful and appreciative for everyone that supports my podcast, whether you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, subscribed on YouTube, anywhere you listen and anywhere you support and keep up and follow. I just want you to know that I'm so incredibly grateful for all of you. I'm so excited for the future of this podcast. Excited is an understatement, but let's get into episode 3 of my first semester at Yale. Last I left you guys off, I kind of started getting into the social life, and I mentioned some disastrous friendships that I've had since I've been here. As usual, I'm going to make a disclaimer, but once again, take it how you want. For the people that I'm referencing in this part of the episode, I don't really care if there's any offending bad feelings. I'm setting my intentions clear. I'm not trying to be messy. I'm not trying to start nothing or restart nothing up. No, that's not my intentions at all whatsoever. I'm just simply speaking on my experience and what my experience at Yale has been like. So let's get into it. Since my time at Yale, I have become relatively close to 3 different people on this campus. And I say relatively because obviously I just met all of these people, so how close could we really get? We were not on the status of how I am with my friends back home in New York, but we did get relatively close. Person number 1, I knew of her. We knew of each other from back in New York, and I thought we would hit it off really well. I thought we were going to be great friends. I thought that was going to be my first friend when I got to Yale. And unfortunately, but like I said last episode, I like to look at things happening for me and not to me. So I'm glad that all of these friendships ended so I can move forward with my life. Yeah, it just didn't work out that way. We have very different approaches, very different opinions, very different views, and ways of how we live our life and how we approach friendships. I personally like to get a real close, intimate friendship with people. I'm not one to try to hop around to different friend groups and try to be friends with the entire campus. No, I like to meet people organically, naturally, and build my bonds with them, because to be honest, to be 100% truthful, trying to be friends and trying to get close with a lot of people at once is very overstimulating to me. It's very overwhelming to me, and it's just not a good feeling that I have. She kind of operates the opposite way, which is no shade to her. I don't think it's a problem, but that's just not the way I function. There was also a sense of ass kissing that I think she expected me to do. One example that I'm going to give, short, sweet. We had 2 other friends who I'm going to mention shortly. They lived in a different part of campus than us, and me and person 1, we lived literally next door neighbors. So we would hang out at the other 2 people's suite because, let's call a spade, it's the nicest dorm on campus in my opinion. So we would always go over there. We would always walk over there together and hang out over there. We would stay over there to, relatively later times in the night, because that's how cool we were all starting to become. We were watching movies, laughing, joking. We were having a good time together. We would walk back to our dorm from their dorm at around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night every time we would hang out over there. And I'm going to get into this later. The surrounding area of Yale is not the complete safest. Me thinking and how I was raised in the girl code and my personal beliefs and values, I'm thinking okay, since we already live next door and we're already walking together late at night, we're going to stick together, we're going to walk together, make sure we both get there safe. She just didn't really have that same value. So when we were walking back to our dorm late at night, she would speed past me. She wouldn't really walk next to me. It was just little things like that. I didn't really like that. And then when I tried to, express that I didn't like that, it turned into, oh, so why didn't you just say nothing? Why didn't you just ask me to walk next to you? That conversation was a part of a larger conversation with the other 2 people as the things that she was doing that we didn't really necessarily like. So over the course of that entire conversation, which I'm not really going to get into, I kind of realized and I started to hear that she expected me to be the one trying to maintain the friendship, and she was just going to fall back. And that sounds a little extreme, a little harsh. It was that on a lesser scale, but still, I'm not kissing nobody. I'm not feeling for no one to be my friend, and that was just that. So when I blatantly told her after the conversation was already getting heated and piling up, and I felt I wasn't really being heard or respected at all, she called me aggressive. She said, "You're being really aggressive right now. exactly like that. As a black woman, I already don't play with that aggressive word. Every black woman, and mind you, the 3 people I'm going to reference right now, all black women. As a black woman myself, I know the harmful stereotypes and I know the depth and how extreme it is to call another black woman aggressive. Mind you, I was talking to her like I'm talking to you guys right now. I was not yelling at her. I was not in her face. I was not pointing in her face. I was not screaming. I was not even raising my voice. I was trying to stay as calm as possible. So to call me aggressive, yes, I could have used different language. Yes, I didn't have to say I'm not kissing your ass, but that's the reality of the situation. One thing y'all gonna learn about me, and hopefully y'all know by now, I'm not sugarcoating nothing for no one. I'm gonna tell you exactly how it is. I didn't call her out her name, none of that. I simply said I'm not gonna kiss her. I don't feel like that warranted calling me aggressive, but it happened and we stopped speaking from there. Now, the next 2 people is kind of like a longer story, so get y'all popcorn, get y'all drinks, get y'all snacks. We're going to get into it, but not too much because I'm not trying to be messy, but I'm just trying to, once again, let y'all know how my social life has been at Yale. Person number 2 and person number 3, we were once in like a trio, putting that in quotes because it was definitely not a trio. My relationship with person 2, I referred to her as my sister. I called her my dog. That's how close, that's how tight I thought we were. And me personally, I have a lot of trauma behind friendships and relationships to the point where it takes me about 6 months to a year before I even call someone my friend. That's my associate, that's my acquaintance. I'm real iffy, real nitpicky, real weird about calling people my friend just based off the horrific experiences that I've had with people. But I really hit it off with her, and I'm just gonna say, I'm not too prideful to say, I really and truly loved and care about her something serious. Just to put it into perspective for you guys, I planned her entire birthday weekend. And yes, I literally planned it by myself. I used input from some of our other friends because I knew they were gonna have to help with the plan, but I planned her entire birthday weekend. Me and person 3, we're gonna take her out to a restaurant that she said she liked in the area. We were gonna pay for her dinner. While we were at dinner, 2 of our other mutual friends was gonna be decorating their suite. By the time the dinner finished, we were gonna bring person 2 back to the suite, and some of her closest Yale friends were gonna be there. It was gonna be a surprise game night. It was gonna be so fun. On top of the going out to eat surprise and the birthday surprise at the suite, the surprise game night, I reached out to about 20 of her closest friends from her hometown to get them to send me like a video, 30-second to a 1-minute video saying happy birthday, we love you. And I was going to put all of the videos together to show her on her actual birthday. Then on top of that, one of the people that I contacted from her hometown obviously loves her and cares about her so much to the point where I told her about the video, and she mentioned to me that she was actually planning on coming to Yale to, you know, spend time with person 2 to like surprise her on her birthday. But the day that she was planning on coming, we were not going to be in town. Our break was going to already be in effect. We weren't going to be here. So I told her the plan about the surprise game night, and literally 10 minutes later, that friend from back home brought her plane ticket, and we had planned and arranged for her to stay in my suite overnight. She was going to get her on Thursday. The whole dinner surprise and the whole game night surprise was going to be on Friday the next day. We arranged and I offered to let her stay in my dorm with me or in my suite with me. Either she could sleep on my floor or I was going to offer her my couch so that the next day on Friday we could surprise person 2. That just goes to show how much I truly loved and adored person 2. Like I said, I called that my sister. I thought that was my dog. The reason we fell out, and if you guys didn't know, we had a podcast together. The reason we fell out was over an episode topic. The episode that I'm referring to is the episode about our high schools. Because if you watch episode 1 of Silence the Podcast, then you know about the tumultuous relationship that I had with my high school and how I was treated during my senior year and all the initiatives, all the things I did for that school, just for them to turn around and tell me I couldn't give a valedictorian speech. She surprisingly had a very similar experience. That was going to be our second episode, basically explaining our experience in high school and how we got to where we are, and, you know, sharing our story. I was going to tell a very shortened version of the story I told you guys in episode 1 about what I went through in high school, and she was going to tell her version of what she went through in high school. Mind you, the episodes we had already planned well in advance of even launching the podcast. At this point, our first episode is already out, it's already aired, it's already doing well on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, all of the platforms that it was on. It was doing well, it was getting views, it was getting traction. 2 hours before I was supposed to go to her suite to film episode 2 about the high school, she sends me a very unserious voice note. She no longer wants to film the episode. She has a bad gut feeling about it. In the voice note, person 3, which was another one of our friends that I'll get into later, was in the background. They were laughing, they were carrying on. It was obviously something that she didn't really care about. It wasn't very important to her. Now, that immediately irritated me because this topic and how my high school treated me and how our high schools treated us, it was very important to me because I didn't realize how much people went through the same thing. We even met 2 other people on this campus that went through the same thing or something very similar with their high school. And after I put out my episode on silence about what I went through, the amount of people that reached out to me saying they also went through something similar about how their high school silenced them after all the hard work that they put in, it all just went to show how much people were going through what we went through, but they didn't have the voice or they didn't have the platform to speak on it. So yes, it was very important to me to film that episode. So when she's telling me 2 hours before we're supposed to film that she doesn't want to do it anymore, and then she's laughing in the background carrying on, and I hear our other friend in the back of the voice note, and it just communicated that she didn't really care about it as much as I did, and it wasn't important to her that she was canceling last minute. I sent her a voice note back. I'm saying I disagree to no longer wanting to do the episode topic. I'm just trying to figure out the root issue of why. I'm trying to remind her of how passionate, how excited we were to both talk about our experience with the intent to help other people out there that may be going through the same thing. She doesn't respond to the voice note. She still tells me the time to go over to her suite to film. So I go over there. I will admit I was going over there already frustrated because of the miscommunication and unclarity about what episode I was even going over there to film. Keep this in mind. This is very important for the next part of the story. The first episode that we produced, I edited that completely off my computer. And that's something that we both agreed on. Like, I wasn't blindsided with that. I had previous editing experience when I did YouTube back in 2020, 2021. And I was the one that knew the kinks and the tricks behind editing on iMovie, which is a software on the MacBook, which is how the audio and the visual of our podcast even got released. Being that was such a crazy experience trying to edit that episode. When I tell y'all that episode crashed my computer 3 times, I had got through the full episode editing process twice and the episode deleted. I was on the phone with Apple support, Spotify support, trying to problem shoot and figure out what was wrong with this damn episode. Why wasn't it airing on Spotify correctly? Why did it keep deleting from my laptop? So I went through a lot to get that episode out and ready for the deadline that we had. Keep that in mind. All of the hard work I was doing for our first episode, it kind of pushed me back on my schoolwork a little bit. Not to the point where I was like falling behind, but I did prioritize editing that episode and getting it out because of the deadline that we had. So the fact that I'm going over there completely like unaware and confused about what we're filming, it irritated me because it felt like you're being inconsiderate of my time. And she knew that I was a little bit behind in my schoolwork because of the editing process that it took for episode 1 of our podcast. The fact that you're like last minute changing the plans about this episode that I truly and honestly am passionate about and want to speak about, I didn't appreciate that. Long story short, I get over there, we're about to film, and then she stops. She says I clearly look very frustrated, and we have a conversation about conflict that we're having. To sum up the conversation, she basically told me that I had already posted about the situation with my high school previously on my Instagram page, which I did back in June when I first graduated. I didn't really understand her purpose of bringing that up. I feel like it didn't have nothing to do with our podcast, but she told me that since I already posted about my story about my high school on Instagram and my graduation post, it wasn't that big of a deal. She didn't understand why I was so passionate about speaking about it on our podcast. She basically said I was frustrated for no reason, that we have other topics to talk about, and me trying to get to the root of the issue, because I'm sorry, once I'm passionate about something, I'm not just going to throw that away. I wanted to know the root issue and the real reason as to why she no longer wanted to film it. I was trying to figure out, was someone intimidating her back home? Like, what was this gut feeling that she was experiencing to the point where she no longer wanted to film this episode that we were once so deeply passionate about? She was getting frustrated that I kept asking her, like, what is this gut feeling? Like, I'm trying to get to the root issue. She was getting frustrated. She was getting angry. That conversation didn't end off well. We kind of packed up all of our stuff that we set up to film. We left the room that we were about to film in, and we went our separate ways, and we both agreed that we would talk about it the following day. That day never came. I haven't spoken to her since that day. Like, we just never spoke again after that. And you guys can have your own opinions on who should have reached out first. But me personally, the way that she approached the conversation and trying to downplay and minimize, one, my experience by telling me that I already talked about it on Instagram, so I shouldn't be this pressed to talk about it on our podcast, and two, her minimizing my frustration. I don't appreciate that at all. I told you on episode 2, I came into college with a full non-negotiables for friendships and relationships, and downplaying and trying to silence and minimize how I feel or what I went through is something that's never gonna fly. So I feel like because she initiated the problem with not wanting to film the episode anymore, it was her business to reach out to me the next day with a new plan of what we were gonna film. But that day never came. And you could say I was being prideful or whatever the case may be, but I also didn't reach out because, like I said, I feel like I didn't initiate the problem. Mind you, this was my dog. Like I just told y'all, planned her whole birthday. This was my sister. Like, I called her my best friend at Yale. That's how much I thought I found my person here. So the fact that this small situation led to us not speaking for 5 days was crazy to me. One random day, I'm on FaceTime with one of my friends from back home, and I start getting emails about verification codes for TikTok and Instagram. Mind you, I'm confused. I don't know why they're sending verification codes to my email, but I'm not paying too deep attention into it. Like I'm on the phone with my friend. After I get off the phone with my friend from back home, I log into my email and I see that she deactivated our joint podcast email. She deleted our joint podcast Instagram. She deleted our joint podcast TikTok. She deleted our joint podcast YouTube, all without my consent. Imagine how I feel. This podcast was something that I truly and honestly believed that was going to do well. It was going to change the community. It was going to change the conversation around Black people at Yale. I genuinely, honestly, truly, deeply cared about this podcast, and it was something that we both owned together. It was not only hers, and it was not only mine. We both owned it together. We came up with the idea of the podcast together. So the fact that she deleted it off of one small disagreement about an episode without my complete consent, completely blindsided me, that hurt deeply. And yes, if you're watching this, congratulations. Like, if that was your goal, you achieved it, because my feelings were so hurt beyond it. I don't know. If you're trying to understand how I felt, picture you and your significant other getting into an argument and y'all live together, and then you get home off of work one day, he completely changed the locks. It was such a ridiculous and like heartbreaking feeling that I felt when I realized she took it upon herself to delete it off of all platforms. Like, I'll never like forget how I felt that day. Once again, I thought me and this person were so close. I thought that was my dog. I thought that was my sister. So the fact that she did this and I was completely blindsided, I had never in a million years expected her to do that. If I did, one, we would have never had any type of podcast together at all. And two, if I would have knew that she was going to eventually do that, I would have said, okay, podcast over, from that initial conflict we had about the episode. In no way, shape, or form did I ever think in a million years she was that type of person. Before she deleted the podcast episode, I thought eventually we were going to speak. Eventually we were going to get over this little hump in our friendship. This was our first ever time disagreeing about anything. That's how connected, that's how much in tune I thought we were. But after she deleted the podcast, I instantly knew friendship was over. I instantly knew friendship was over. I instantly knew friendship was done. I instantly knew I was never in my life going to speak to that girl ever again. I don't know what type of superiority, I don't know what type of audacity, I don't know what type of feeling she felt to make her think it was okay to delete our joint podcast, something that we both worked on, an episode that I spent so much time troubleshooting and editing. I don't know what inside her made her think it was okay to delete our podcast, but she did it, and then we have not spoke since then. Person 3, the third friendship that I kind of fell out with, me and her never had any direct conflict. Once me and person 2 stopped speaking, she stopped speaking to me as well. Me, person 2, and person 3, we were in a trio. All three of us were friends. We hung out often. We did work together. We did a lot of things together. So the fact that all it took was me to fall out with person 2 for her to stop speaking to me as well, that's kind of crazy to me. But like I said, I'm very grateful that she did that, because now I know the type of person she was. Imagine I was friends with her for another year or 2 years, and I start seeing the signs that she didn't really like me anyway. Clearly she was only in the friendship for person 2. If a situation that had nothing to do with her between me and person 2 made her feel the need to stop speaking to me as well, but she did it and it was done. And once again, I haven't spoken to her either. If you're wondering what happened with the birthday surprise weekend that I planned for person 2, I don't know what they ended up doing, because another thing they did is I woke up one morning and I saw they both unfollowed me off all social medias. They stopped sharing their location with me, all of that. And something I didn't mention before, person 2 for whatever reason got her mom involved in the situation. Her mom literally called my father and told him about our fallout and about the episode. From what my father told me and how my father came at me, it's very clear that they told him that I stopped being her friend based on her not wanting to film the episode or not wanting to talk about her high school experience. And that's clearly not the case. I just told y'all I'm not going to stand for nobody ever, boyfriend, teacher, friend, nothing, downplaying my feelings. And that's exactly what she did, which is why I was upset. If she approached the situation completely differently, we would probably still be cool right now. Her acting that way in that conversation and then deleting our podcast is the reason why we will never speak again. I don't care how close we were, how close I thought we were, at least we will never speak again. And like I said, person 3 was basically her sidekick. She unfollowed me and stopped speaking to me right with her. I'm not the type of person where that type of stuff is gonna like move me, or I'm not gonna like crawl in my room, or I'm not gonna like shut myself in my room and not come out for a week and be in bed crying and shit because y'all decided y'all didn't want to be my friend no more. I know in my heart of hearts that I love both of those girls endlessly, and I tried to be the best friend possible that I could be to them. Like, I literally genuinely tried. So the fact that it took something so small to escalate into us never speaking ever again, it's unfortunate, but it's cool with me because I learned their true colors very quickly. I was blindsided. I would have never thought in a million years that it would end like that, but it did. So it is what it is. Those 3 instances with those 3 people just go to show how my social life and how my experience has been trying to make friends at Yale. Like I said, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great. It really has not been great at all. I feel like a common denominator in all of those 3 situations is I was expected to reach out. I was expected to communicate first. And that's just not my thing, especially in situations where I don't feel like I was wrong. But I also realized that within that friendship, I was the closed off one. I was so stuck on trying to like get close to them and learn them and like and grow a deeper bond with them that I completely shut out the entire campus. And after that, those friendships ended, I really did start to be more open. I started going to dinner with people. I started going to breakfast with people. I started talking to people through text more. I started speaking to more people. And it made me realize how cool a lot of the people on this campus are. Even through this podcast, the amount of upperclassmen and like people on Instagram that go to Yale that have reached out to me and was like, yo, your podcast is really dope. Like, I really and genuinely enjoy watching it. We have even now made plans for after winter break to like link up and grab a cup of coffee. It's so many cool and dope people on this campus, and that was my fault for closing myself off to them. I do feel like the social life will improve here over time, but like I said, this first semester it hasn't been good at all. To move on to like party culture, the pretentiousness that people here like exert, party culture is not for me. I was never a big partier. I was never the one to like be outside partying every weekend. I never did that back at home in New York, for the simple reason where it's a lot of ways you could die in this world. It's a lot of ways you could go out sad in this world. And me personally, I love and I value life and my life too much for me to go out on the news that I was shot and killed at a party, or I was raped at a party, or I was drugged at a party. I'm not saying that's what happens at Yale. I'm just talking about in general. That's why I never was really into the party scene. I love my life too much, and there's already so many ways to like die. I would rather not die at a party. But obviously I was trying to have an open mind when I came to Yale. So when I got here, I did try going out a few times. I went out 3 total times without the semester. Now, to put that in perspective, there's a party every single week on this campus. Every single week, the same fraternities are throwing parties. We've been here for 5 months. I know this is not completely accurate, but each month has about 4 weekends in it. So I had about 20 opportunities to go out and party, and I've only went out 3 times. So that should go, like, that goes to show how the party culture is here. I'm not going to say it's terrible. It's just not what I'm used to. And if I'm uncomfortable in a situation, I'm not going to continue putting myself in that same situation every single week. The parties are usually held at frat houses, and the parties are so freaking packed because of how many people view partying as like a get off here. They view it as a way to de-stress and like have fun every single weekend. So every single weekend is packed. People are pushing each other. People are all over each other. People are all on top of each other, and that's just not my thing. Like, stuff like that and environments like that give me bad social anxiety and bad anxiety in general, so I'd rather not. And on top of that, I'm from New York. Dancing and music is such a large aspect of the New York scene. Not even party scene, but like New York scene in general. We have, in my opinion, some of the littest music, some of the littest dances. So I'm not used to like party rocking in the house tonight. Like, I'm just not used to all of that. I'm used to Cash Cobain. I'm used to Drake. I'm used to flavorful music. And I feel like that's what lacks here. I went out one time where the music was actually good, but the other 2 times it was like absolutely not. And like I said, the fist pump is the main like dance move that people have here. There's no getting sturdy. There is nothing like what I'm used to from New York, and that's why I just rather choose not to go. From what I've heard, it's relatively safe to what it could be and what I know it is at other schools, but it's still not safe. The amount of people that have been to like Yale Health and the hospital here because they've gotten too drunk, or they just was wilding out and got out of control at parties, it's not a lot, but it's definitely happened here. But I feel like that's more like a personal thing. Like, you have to know your limits. You have to know what you can and cannot tolerate. And if you OD, if you drag it and end up in the hospital, then that's on you. That's not a reflection of Yale or the school here. And I would say Yale is very much reasonable when it comes to those type of situations. They take a policy, they take a stance on we're trying to protect your health rather than get you in trouble. So if there is a night where you get too drunk or too hammered and you just sloppy all over the place, passing out, throwing up on yourself, they actually encourage students to get you to Yale Health and call 911 or Yale security or something, and you can actually get away with it, not scot-free, because obviously there's some type of intervention. They'll bring someone to like speak with you about what's going on. Is this an occasional thing? Are you going through something that's making you drink? Like, what happened that made you get to that point? But the most they'll do is have a conversation with you for your first time, and then they'll make sure you're okay, and then you'll get off, no punishment, no nothing. Obviously, if it becomes an occasional thing and it becomes a frequent thing where every single weekend you're in the hospital because you got too drunk or you overdosed on whatever the case may be, punishment comes into play. That was one of the first things that they made very clear once we first got here. We are prioritizing your health rather than trying to get you in trouble. And that's one thing I think is very, very, very good and very, very helpful that Yale does. I would say the pretentiousness, it's not very pretentious here. Like, I wouldn't say people are very snooty, very snobby. You definitely have some bad apples in the bunch. For the most part, a lot of people are really humble here. When you've been here for a certain amount of time, you stop treating it like, oh my God, like this glamorous, glorious like school that so many people have to fight to get into. Like, it really becomes secondhand nature. Like, yeah, I go to Yale. We're not constantly like throwing it in each other's face what our SAT score was or what extracurriculars we did in high school. Like, no, a lot of the people here are very calm, very chill, and that's what it's been like. Obviously, we know amongst ourselves that there are some very, very, very rich people here that pay the full $100,000 a school year. Like, there are some people who are very, very rich. There are some celebrities' kids that go here, and we don't ever make them feel like they're celebrities' kids. Like, we try to treat them as normal as possible, and I think that's something I really do like about it here. Because if I was walking down the street and I saw paparazzi or security or a large group of people surrounding one famous like celebrity student, I would feel uncomfortable. I would feel like weird, because like, why? They're people too. Treat them like people, not like zoo animals. I'm gonna shift to like my living situation, how safe I feel on this campus, the relationship with my parents, and like where I am now. So as far as my living situation, I will say I got so incredibly lucky, so incredibly lucky with the people I was placed to live with. In the summer, before they assign rooms, you take like a survey, and it's basically ask you questions about how you live, how clean you are, what time you wake up, what time you go to sleep, are you a morning shower, are you a night shower, do you want to live in like a party suite where people are constantly over, people are constantly in and out, do you want to live in a more calmer suite where like it's just you and your suite mates, there's not a lot of parties happening, there's not a lot of like social activity or a lot of guests. Like, it's a very extensive, in my opinion, survey that you take when you're a Yale student applying for like on-campus housing, and they do that with the purpose to try to match people as best as possible. It's successful when people are honest about the way they live. Like, if you know you are very sloppy, you're very messy in your living situation, and if you say that, then they're not going to pair you on purpose with like a person that's very clean. For our sake and for their sake, I believe they want to minimize the amount of roommate horror stories that happen on this campus, because then it becomes more work for them to try to like change rooms and like find more available dorms. Like, it's just too much for us and for them. I got so very lucky, and I love my suite mates endlessly. They are very clean. They don't give me any problems. They don't invite a lot of people over. When they do invite people over, it's literally like they're popping in, like they had to get something from their room and their friend just tagged along. Even their friends that they bring over, they're very respectful. They always speak, they always say hi. The agreements that we made with each other when we first got here about things that we're not negotiating about and things that we're okay with, we all do our best to stick to it, and it's very obvious, it's very evident. And I will say, coming to Yale, my living situation was one of the things I was most worried about. I grew up with a mom. My mom is very, very clean. My mom never played that having a million people in our house. Like, no, it's always been me and my mom in our house. Rarely ever, we probably had about 3 people over in the entire 8 years that we've been living in our apartment. That's how much like me and my mom value our space and our like serenity within our space. It's a lot of things where I'm not going for as a roommate, nothing. And I made that very clear. And on top of that, I have certain accommodations, which I can't really get into because Yale themselves asked me to like not really like speak on that a lot. But I got accommodations and I received a single. My single is 93 square feet, which sounds very, very small. But as you can probably see from like my background, I tried to do my best to make it as homey as possible. I love my room so much, and I'm so incredibly grateful that they gave me my own space, because me living in a single suite is not only good for like my physical sanity in terms of the cleanliness of my room, but it's also good for my productivity and like my general mental health. If I had a roommate and they were sloppy all over the place and they didn't respect my boundaries, I would not be able to succeed academically here because I'm so miserable in my own damn room. And I know that's the reality for a lot of students here. Not a lot, but like I've heard a few stories about people in my grade that have not had good experiences with their roommates at all. But I just want to make it clear that that's not been my experience at all. And Yale hospitality, Yale room board, whatever you want to call it, if you're ever watching this, thank you so much for making sure I was situated and comfortable in my space. Now let's get into the safety and security of Yale. Let's talk about the physical safety and the surrounding area. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm never going to get up here and claim that I'm from the hood. I'm not from the hood. I was not born in no trap house. I never had to tote no gun to like protect myself. None of that. I'm not from the hood. I'm not born in the hood. But being in Brooklyn, you could literally drive 2 blocks and you're in the hood, or drive another 2 blocks and you're in a wealthy part of the neighborhood. Like, that's how gentrified and that's how segregated New York City is, where I'm from. I know what the hood looks like. I know when you have a Citizen app and it's telling you every 10 minutes, every 2 seconds, a shooting happened here, a robbing happened here. Like, I know what that feels like to get those notifications on my phone. And even though I don't necessarily live in that type of situation or live in that type of environment, I know what the hood is like. A lot of privileged Yale students that have came from predominantly white areas and aren't used to like the urban living in like a city, they call it like the hood. They like to make it seem like it's very unsafe. And I don't want to be insensitive, because a lot of people here, or some people here, may have had experiences where they've been robbed, or they've been harassed, or they've been intimidated, or they've been assaulted by people around this area. At the end of the day, New Haven is a city, and cities are urban. A lot of traffic, a lot of things happen in cities. Like, it's not going to be the safest place ever, but I will say New Haven is not the hood, especially where Yale is. Yale has a larger problem, and that's a whole different topic for a whole different episode, of how this rich ass institution does not give back to their community. In fact, they don't even pay property taxes to ensure that the cost of living isn't outrageous for the people living near Yale. But like I said, that's something we could touch on a completely different day. The general like safety, you're not gonna walk outside your dorm and get shot. Like, that's just the reality. And if you do, that would be a very rare occasion. But the most that happens here is like people get robbed maybe once a week, once every other week. But for the most part, I would say, in my personal opinion, that it's relatively safe. In terms of the political and emotional safety that I've experienced, the election was definitely something. The 2025 election, and the fact that Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States, and he's back in office again, was a very emotional day for a lot of people. But I will say it wasn't it wasn't as bad as it could have been on this campus, because like I said, and like we all know, Yale is a predominantly white institution. The black and brown students here could have experienced a lot of like racism and a lot of like Trump flags everywhere. That was not the case at all. I literally only saw one Trump flag throughout the whole election season. However, on the day of the election, where Harris Walz lost and the Trump administration won, there was a pickup truck full of Trump supporters. Trump supporting football players at that. Let's get real specific. And you can imagine what they looked like. They were in a pickup truck that had Donald Trump's flag on it. They were playing like the Republican national music, whatever you want to call it, and they were intimidating black students. They were driving around the campus, and multiple black students here have said when the Trump pickup truck rode past them, they would do little small microaggressions, like driving around the block again, basically following and try to intimidate the black and brown students here. My issue with Yale, and I don't know if it was brought to administration, I don't know how well higher ups of the campus knew what happened, but nothing was ever addressed about that situation. And shit like that, I don't find that cool at all. You can have your political beliefs, and I'm not one of those people where you can believe X, Y, and Z and we can still be cool. No. Your political beliefs are tied to your morality. So if you believe the bullshit that Donald Trump says and does, and if you support that, then we cannot be cool. But don't be trying to harass and intimidate black students now. That's what we're not going to do. And that's what they tried to do. And your administration never addressed it. It never got mentioned. And that's the thing that I don't support. I don't appreciate. I'm not for neutrality. I literally have a podcast called Silence the Podcast, which is against neutrality and acts of being silent, and I also had a problem with that. It could have been way worse on the campus full of white people, but it was still some little things that happened that I don't like and don't appreciate whatsoever at all. To touch on the little racist microaggressions I experienced, I have not experienced blatant racism here, which is interesting because I thought I would, and I thought I would be fighting for my life every single day, but I'm very happy and proud to say that I have not. But I have experienced little micro instances where it's very clear that they want you to feel like you don't belong here. Like if I'm walking down the street and I'm walking, like I just happen to be walking behind a white person, obviously not on their tail, but walking behind them on a sidewalk like a normal human being, they'll like turn around and see that I'm walking behind them, and then they'll like move over, or they'll speed up, they'll walk a little faster. I can assure you, you don't have nothing that I want. I don't have to rob you. You are wearing a plaid t-shirt, some dirt wash jeans, and $2 pair of shoes from Walmart. And not to get all materialistic, but I promise you, I don't want nothing you have. So to act as if me simply walking behind you or me simply walking next to you is such a threat to your safety, and you're so scared that I'm going to rob you to the point where you have to walk a little faster, you're delusional. You're the drunk one. Because I promise you, I don't want nothing you have. I don't want nothing you own. I'm good. Okay? A couple times a week, I would say it's not the best possible situation, but it's also not the worst. It could be way worse. Second to last, I just want to touch on the relationship with my parents while I've been here, because it definitely has changed. And I just want to say I'm so grateful, and I've grown a deeper gratitude and deeper appreciation for my parents and the way they raised me. I say this because when you get to college, you just look around and you just see how people were raised and how their morals and like their thought processes and their mindset, you just see how all of that is different from how you were brought up. And I wanted to my own horn. I would like to say I have a very stable, balanced head on my shoulders, and I have very strong morals. Like, I know who I am. Obviously, that process of like getting to know myself and learning who I am, that's not linear and that doesn't end. It's continuous, and it will continue to grow and change and evolve throughout my entire life. But for my age and where I'm at in life right now, I know what I want in this life, and I know who I am as a person. I have very strong moral code. I have very strong values, and it's certain things where I know right from wrong, and I know what I'm tolerating, and I know what I'm not. For that, I'm very grateful that my parents raised me to be this way and to like know right from wrong and things of that nature. And I'm not trying to judge no one, and may come off as that way, but I'm honestly not trying to judge anyone. A lot of people here, you can tell, are lost. You can tell that they were very sheltered back at home, wherever they're coming from. You could tell that they either didn't have a lot of rules to follow and they're just reckless and wild out, or you could tell that they were very, very strict. They had very, very strict parents, and they lived in a very, very strict situation to the point where either A, they don't really know how to function independently in college, or B, they are out of control, like I said. I'm very grateful that that's not the reality for me, and I owe that to my parents because of their parenting. It was them and their parenting and their mindset and their values and the way they raised me that made me into who I am. And I think that's very important to acknowledge. I appreciate them more. And that's the beautiful part about college, was me realizing that my parents really did have the best interests at heart for me. They really did have the best intentions for me my entire life. It didn't take me this long to realize that. Like, I've always been grateful for the situation where I've been in. This is not to say I had the most perfect parents in the world, because best believe they've done some very questionable things while raising me that we won't get into because that's too personal. To end this off and to end this whole segment and like series about my first semester at Yale, I want to say I'm in such a good place right now. A week ago, I could not have been able to say the same, if I'm being completely honest and transparent, because 2 weeks ago was when I fell out with the friends that I thought I had. And in college is different. Like in high school, you maybe could get away with not really speaking to people on a daily basis or not having a lot of friends. College is very different in my opinion, because like I said in my last episode, you have a lot of free time on your hands, and just working and doing schoolwork or having an on-campus job, that's going to burn you out after a while. That's going to get very lonely, very tiring, very boring. And it's always good to have your community of people here. So the fact that I have spent all of my college experience, all 4 months that I've been here, building a community, or thinking I was building a community with those friends, and then falling out with them, it kind of left me feeling like miserable. I'm gonna be completely honest, because I'm like, damn, now I really have no one. And that wasn't completely true. I think I just over dramatized it for when I was going through it, which I completely like understand and give myself grace for. They weren't the only people that I spoke to on this campus. They were the people that I was the closest to, but I do still have 2 other people on this campus that I truly love and adore, and have been supporting me, have been by my side throughout this entire situation with them, and throughout the first 5 months that I've been here. After going home for November break and being able to see my friends from back home and being able to have like that reset, it really put into perspective, like, I'm not as alone as I felt, and I do have people here that genuinely care about me, and I have strong faith and strong like hopes that it's gonna get better and improve, and I will continue to build and find my people here, because I already have within the past 2 weeks. And now that I have a little bit more alone time, and I'm not like prioritizing a friendship so much, not prioritizing to the point where it was unhealthy, because I still did make time for myself and I still spent a lot of time with myself. But now that I have that like friendship out of my way, and I don't have it on the top of my mind anymore, I have been reconnected with myself. I've been spending much more time with myself. I've been falling in love with myself all over again. And not to say I lost myself, but clearly I'm trying to build such a deep and intimate bond with them. I started putting a lot on the back burner, and that's coming to the forefront again. Another thing I want to say is I'm very grateful for the people I had back home that support me. My closest friends from high school, my best friend and my boyfriend. I am so thankful, and I know I said that a lot this episode, but I cannot express how grateful enough I am that I've had them throughout this entire process. We're in all different states, we're in all different parts of the country right now, we're all going through our own things and our own college experiences, but the fact that they've been here to support me and like keep me in good spirits, they've been checking in with me, like I'm so incredibly thankful for them, because I honestly do not know where I would be if I didn't have them to support me back at home. It almost brings me to tears of how grateful and how lucky I feel to have had them throughout this journey, throughout this ride with me. If it wasn't for them, my experience here would be way worse than what it was. And it wasn't even terrible, but I know it would have been way worse then, and I would have felt way more alone, way more isolated, and my mental health would have been way worse without them by my side. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all to a point where y'all never know. Without y'all, I would not be in this positive and hopeful and optimistic mindset that I'm in right now. And for that, I'm forever grateful. In this current state that I'm in, I'm waiting for my final grades. I'm in the last week of my classes. I've already said bye to 2 of my professors because, it's been our final class. And I have such high hopes and such optimistic beliefs for what my time at Yale is going to be like. And it hasn't been the best. It hasn't been the worst. There's been a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But I can say that I'm in such a better place, and it's starting to feel like I made the right choice. I know last episode I wasn't in that space, and it's kind of gonna flip-flop a lot until I really find my footing here. But overall, even with some doubts I have about the school and the safety and the social life, I can honestly and truly say I'm forever grateful for Yale. I'm forever grateful for being privileged enough to say I'm a Yale student, and I'm so happy and so grateful and so excited for what's to come. That's it for this episode. I know it was a longer one, but thank you so much if you stayed and you listened throughout the entire way through. I tried to not ramble, I tried to not make it longer than what it had to be, but I do love to talk. I have my own podcast. I'll see you guys in the next episode. As always, thank you for all the love, all the support, all the messages, all the reposts, all the shares. You can find Silence the Podcast on YouTube at Silence Pod, or Spotify, Silence the Podcast, and Instagram at Silence Pod. I'll see you guys in the next episode, and I thank you guys so much always. I'm so grateful. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're in a good space, and if not, I hope it gets better for you.